Hey friends, welcome back to the Grace Filled podcast. As of this recording, it's a new year and a new series for you to start off 2023. Thank you for joining us in the three-part Healthy Habits series with my good friend, Mendy Shriver. Today, we are talking about healthy eating habits and touching on that tough topic of emotional eating. Next week, we are going to be diving into healthy habits in regards to exercise and movement. And then in our last episode of the series, we are tackling the healthy habits mindset aspect from a Christian worldview. So Mendy is a family counselor and fitness expert as a previous gym owner and full of knowledge. She is a regular guest on our podcast, and we are thrilled to have her on again. Welcome, Mendy.
Thank you so much, Lana. I'm really excited to be here.
I am so excited to chat with you again today. So first of all, I think most of our friends here online know you from all of our previous episodes, but for those that are new, tell them a little bit about yourself.
Okay, yeah, I am a counseling director at our local church called Pleasant Valley Church. We have a Christian counseling center. I'm a mother of 5 young adults between the ages of 18 and 22. I'm an adoptive mom of 2 sweet girls from West Africa, Sierra Leone, West Africa. Been married for almost 26 years, which I feel like now when the grandmas older than me were saying it goes by in a blink of an eye, I'm understanding that a little bit now. It's gone so fast. I can't even believe I've been married almost 26 years. It's kind of crazy. I do have a background in fitness, but prior to that, even my undergrad work in my 20s was in mental health and wellness. And then I left that industry and went into fitness for like 14 years and then came back to mental health, and I'm now a professional counselor at our local church, which I love that our church has a Christian counseling center that's affordable counseling, because as many of you know, counseling can be very expensive.
Mm-hmm. And
So
it is meeting such a good, it's meeting a need that has been in our community for a while. And I
yes.
love that our church is focusing in on that. And just to say, for those of you that don't know, Mendy is my true life friend here.
Yes.
We live about 5 minutes, 10 minutes apart. We're semi-related, and our grandbabies are best friends, and me and Mendy go way back. So it is so nice that our church is emphasizing this and giving this gift to the community and really pouring in. And was that focus started more after? I know we've had a counseling center for a long time, but it seems like it was amped up after COVID in 2020 and all of that.
Yeah, so actually the church, Pleasant Valley, they began the dream of having an actual counseling center, like building out a counseling center within the walls of the church in 2019, prior to them even knowing, that 2020 was coming.
That's a
And
God thing right
yeah,
there.
absolutely it is. And so they were looking for places within the church walls to like tear some things down and create the center. And then COVID hits early 2020. And because people were not tithing as much and money, just like typical things that churches deal with, they put it on hold for a hot minute.
Mm-hmm.
Towards the end of 2020, when no one is in church, like no one's coming to church, they finally find some people willing to come in and knock some walls down and rebuild this one section literally for like nothing, for hardly any money. So construction workers who attend church went into the building, built this thing out for next to nothing, donated their materials, donated their time. And so during 2020, when no one was actually in the building, and this is the God part too, because God knew what was coming, already, and how much the community and the church and individuals would be suffering. In the counseling world, we talk about how as counselors, we're trying to undo aloneness.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Aloneness is where trauma happens. Aloneness is where we emotionally eat,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's just something we've always talked about. But the feeling of aloneness is now the new pandemic, right? It's always been the pandemic throughout history. It's why our hearts and our souls are longing for that Christ-centered relationship. But something has happened since the pandemic where anxiety levels, loneliness have increased. And so, yes, in 2020, they actually had a building open. In 2021, we opened the actual center. And then in November of 22, was that what we just ended? Yeah, we celebrated 1 year opening to the public. So we did have a counseling center for a long time. To answer your question, finally, it was only for the members of Pleasant Valley Baptist Church.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's been 1 year open to the public, and that is really awesome.
I love what you're doing and just such a strong impact for our community. I just think that's as good as it gets right there. It's a win-win for everyone all the way around, truly serving the community. So, okay, so I'm so thrilled that you're coming on, giving us your insight. Mendy's a regular here on our podcast. Many of you know her. And today we are starting the series, as we had mentioned, a 3-part series on healthy habits. Today we're chatting about healthy eating habits. And as we just turned the calendar over to 2023, most people are really focused in on this and resolutions, and I think that's a main topic for everyone coming into this week. So, having just wrapped up the holidays, my kitchen was packed with baked goods, fun coffee creamers. I always do. I'm usually a black coffee person, but in December, I like trying all the peppermint mocha and all the fun stuff. My kitchen is packed with gifts of candy and treats and all kinds of stuff. Do you recommend a clean out of all the food that is not considered healthy? And how extreme do you think we should go with that?
I absolutely, hands down, recommend a hard stop.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's got to be a hard stop. There has to be boundaries. Like healthy boundaries is what we teach in mental health, and healthy boundaries is actually what we teach in physical health as well. If you don't have boundaries, right, then nothing changes. You keep
Right.
doing the same thing over and over. That's the definition of insanity, and nothing ever changes. So if we just keep those things in our home, you will
Mm-hmm.
just nibble on it as you walk by it in the kitchen, or I'll just have this one piece right after dinner tonight, or as I'm watching my favorite show before bedtime, I'm just going to have it. And so I do recommend a hard stop, not just for this time of the year, but every holiday. I remember doing this with my kids and they didn't love it, but Halloween, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we're going trick-or-treating, then we kind of come up with a day, 3 or 4 days after, maybe it's a week after, but there's a hard stop where all of that sugar goes into the trash can, and there's no reason to even put it in the freezer. Some people are like, oh, we're going to freeze it, it's wasteful. Okay, it's wasteful, but if what's the consequence of keeping it around or putting it in your freezer? It's not a good consequence. It goes straight to your booty or your thighs, or if you're in your 50s and 60s, your belly. So I recommend a hard stop, not just for this season, but for every season that brings a lot of extra sugar and fat and toxins, frankly, toxins into your system. And I think about like, even I love to cook with my kids once a year. This time of year, I actually bake. I bring out the cooking tips, and this little squeezable cookie decorating things, and we do it all. And I don't ever want to deprive my family and the girls in my family from those experiences. I think those are extremely emotionally and mentally healthy, to have those family gatherings together and to cook and to bake. One of my favorite Christmas recipes is my aunt's poppy seed bread recipe. And I have great fond memories of it. It's not a lemon, it's an almond poppy seed bread. And so she gave that recipe to me at college. I would come home for Christmas and then come to the family gathering, and every year she would give me my own personal loaf, and I would be so excited to take it back to college with me. And so now I give that out to all my friends and family, and so my girls come over, we all make it, they give it to their friends and family. So I definitely want to make sure we have the mindset of continuing to do that amazing thing together, where we bake and we cook and we share family time together, and then together we have a hard stop.
Yeah, I
And it
love that.
looks like right now, I can see in my kitchen right now, We've thrown all the cookies and the breads away, but there are 2 cans of popcorn, like the Top C's popcorn still sitting in there, and they need to go in the trash can
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just this week, I took a bunch of things and I told CJ, I put this in your bag. It's going to the fire station with
Right.
you. And I don't care what y'all do there, but
Mhm.
it needs to get out of this house because, it is harder when you're looking at it to, not partake in it. And I love that you mentioned, it is important to keep those traditions and still bake and do those things intentionally and not just breakfast, lunch, and dinner, eat junk all the time that's not healthy or not out of your garden or whatever. And so it's finding that balance between it all. So, okay, I would love to
Let
hear.
me just say one more thing about that. Let me go
Yes.
back to the piece, because what happens is sometimes we think that we're depriving ourselves of that. But
Mhm.
what we're actually doing, if we spin that into a positive, we're just creating boundaries for ourselves.
Yes.
Right? We're just creating boundaries, like this 1 week out of the year, I'm going to allow myself to do this, that here's my boundary. And then I'm going to hard stop, throw it in the trash can, throw it away. And then we'll move on to this. So it's
Yeah.
just it's a healthy boundary.
It is a healthy boundary. I love that. I love that. We don't have to cut everything completely out. It's just having its own place in time
Yes.
and it makes it more special too.
Yes.
It makes that time with your kiddos cooking and all of that more special than if it's just constant. So I do love that. So one conversation that I feel like we've had all kinds of different conversations, but I have never asked you how you feel about the new trend of intermittent fasting. So I know, and I know we're going to get into talking about different programs and things that are out there every year. There's always a new thing that comes out of, cutting carbs or low carbs or this or that, counting calories. But I know one recently that has become very, very popular is the intermittent fasting. So what's your take? I would love to hear.
So intermittent fasting does have a lot of good qualities about it. It really
Yeah.
does.
Okay. And maybe start with explaining what it is for anyone that's never heard that. Explain what it is, how, maybe how it's different from the Bible. We hear the word fasting, it's in the scriptures a lot.
Right.
So maybe explain what the new thing is about the fasting.
Yeah. So in contrast to fasting biblically, that's really meant for prayer, right? Not weight loss. So that we know that's completely different. So it's really not a comparison, but as far as fasting goes, that's prayer, fasting when you're being specific about something you're asking God to do. Intermittent fasting, we all actually fast. We all actually fast when we sleep. So hopefully most of us aren't getting up and eating at 2 a.m. So we're all going to bed at night and our bodies are going in sort of shutdown mode and repair mode. And for maybe 8 hours, we're at least fasting. Intermittent fasting is the research behind it actually started from a man and a group that were studying circadian rhythms. And so he found that like we and our bodies work on a 24-hour cycle. And they began to study the effects of the sun rising and the sun setting and the darkness and the light, which is totally biblical, by the way, right? And so I always laugh at like how much science actually does back up biblical things. But if you go to Genesis, you can literally see like the sun rose, the sun set, and there was one day, and there was day 2, and there was day 3, and we know that part of Genesis. And so circadian rhythms was being studied, and then out of that came the idea of intermittent fasting, meaning that the body works on rhythms, like a daily rhythm or even an annual rhythm or a cycle. And so when we get ourselves out of that cycle by eating at 10 p.m., by eating at 3 a.m., or whatever, we don't allow our bodies to shut down, get a break from the food, process it, break it down, heal, and then start again the next day. So that's where it all kind of started several years ago. And it gained in popularity because they began to study different cycles of the eating pattern, right? And so when I like to think about intermittent fasting, people just focus on the food part, but like there's a whole component of like sleeping, right? We have to have enough sleep. We have to have enough water for all of these things and these systems to work together. the best part about intermittent fasting is if you put it all together. Right? Just don't work through the 16 or 9 different cycles. So there's different kind of intermittentness, if that's a word, intermittentness. You can do, like a 20 and a 4 and a 16 or an 8, or am I adding that up right? But basically what the premise is allowing your body to rest and not take in nutrients, not take in any calories so that it can process it and then heal.
I love that. And so I have several friends that are doing it, and I haven't done the math on it, but they do not eat breakfast, and their first break of the fast is at noon, and they'll eat pretty much 2 meals, noon and dinner at 5:30 or 6 o'clock. So you think that's a healthy thing for them to do? I'm putting you on the spot.
You are putting me on the spot here
because I like my breakfast.
I know. The research varies. You are putting me on the spot. Because personally, this is my personal experience. Research varies on this topic for sure. I just want to say there are great benefits for allowing your body to shut down. I said this just a minute ago, so I feel like I'm repeating myself. And so I see more of a benefit personally for shutting your food down at like 6 p.m. or 7 p.m., right? Or whatever. And then going, let's say, from 7 to 6 a.m. or 7 to 8 a.m., having a little something for breakfast, getting your metabolism started with a big thing of water, right? Some good protein and a little bit of healthy carb. That actually, there's so much research that says like a good, healthy, balanced breakfast and movement wakes your brain up, right? Wakes your brain up for the day, starts your metabolism. So I actually don't believe in just like skipping breakfast till noon.
Right.
And there is some really good research as well for women our age and how it helps to balance hormones, how intermittent fasting can help balance hormones. So to answer your question more succinctly, I don't believe in skipping breakfast. Breakfast doesn't have to be huge. It shouldn't actually be huge, but it does need to involve a healthy carb, maybe a protein, and a lot of water to get your day started.
Okay. Good.
But there are a lot of women finding great results by exactly what your friends are doing.
Okay, good. Okay, so tell me, I'm going to put you on the spot again. Tell me what you think is working. And because I know you have this great background in health and fitness, what is working? What is the new eating program that you think is working? Of course, for me, living here on the farm, we're growing most of our food. Not most, we're growing a good portion of our food. We're in a lull right now. I always struggle in January, February, and March because we're so used to having all these fresh greens and all the fresh tomatoes. And then now the harvest is over and we are eating our stuff that, is canned and comes out of the basement, whatever. But it's not the same. And so we really do struggle. And I think a lot of people do in these 3 months coming up through winter on, what is the best plan. And I've heard so many different carb-free and sugar-free and keto and Whole30 and all these different things. Is it basically as simple as clean eating and just trying to get as close to, the way God made it? Or are there programs that you've seen that actually work right now?
Yeah, you like putting me on the spot here.
I'm asking the hard questions.
I want to be sensitive to people who have actually realized or learned that they have food allergies, right? So we can say gluten-free is appropriate for some people, right? We can say that actually kale might actually not be great for some person who can't process that. I was just reading an article on spinach and how it can contribute the properties. I don't even remember all the names of it, but it could contribute to kidney stones and what it puts in the body. And so I just want to acknowledge that there is absolutely no one diet that works for each person. but common sense, probably every listener who's hearing this right now just needs a reminder that common sense says the closest we can get to what the way God created it in the ground is the best for our bodies.
Mhm.
And so whether that looks like your vegetables that are frozen or your
Mhm.
vegetables that are canned during this time of year is going to be the best for you, even though it's surely not as crisp and as
Mhm.
colorful as if it was if you just pulled it from your beautiful raised gardens at your house, because I've seen them in person and they're really awesome. And so and so I will say, to answer your question, excuse me, my headphone just, my little ear thing just fell out. To answer your question, Whole30 is really good.
Mhm.
Whole30 seems to me, of all the different, because I've tried them all. I have tried
Mhm.
them all. Many of us have. Whole30 seems to be the one that I can stick to the best. It seems reasonable for me.
Mhm.
Will you get insane results with your body if you make it go into ketosis on a keto diet? Absolutely. Is it sustainable long term? I don't think so, because I've tried it.
Mhm.
Right. I also think another one that's really great is paleo.
Mhm.
It seems sustainable. It seems like something I can do long term.
Mhm.
Someone else might disagree with me. I have a pretty good friend who's pretty vegan at this point. Like, she
Mhm.
really, her body responds well. She feels best when she's not eating a lot of red meat. There's also research, as you know, that red meat, too much red meat, can cause inflammation in the body. Ultimately, what we do know is that your body is craving green and colorful things from the ground. So
Mhm.
at this time of year, the best way you can do that, and all throughout history, Lana, how have people done that?
Mhm. Yeah.
I
Just
mean,
eat from the ground. Plant your own food, harvest your own food, and uh, make your own food with your family.
yeah. And so that's just a common sense thing. However, not all of us have little cute, semi-urban farms like you do. And
Mhm.
so not everybody is interested in doing that either, but we have grocery stores and
Right.
they are full of lots of produce that people skip over and go straight to the boxed things. So stay on the perimeter of your grocery store, go straight for the colorful green things. But I would
Mhm.
say, to answer your question, Whole30, I think, is very sustainable. Low sugar is a must,
Mhm.
and get to know what works for your body. Trial
Yeah.
and error.
That's good. Do you have any different advice depending on age groups? Like, is just a healthy, clean eating, from the ground, close to God as it gets, the same in your 30s, 40s, 50s? I'm now above 50. I know so many of my friends are in menopause. I'm close. I'm knocking on the door. I'm actually excited for it. Um, but I know things change with hormones and all of that. Do you have different advice for different age groups?
First of all, you just said something that's really cool, and I don't want anyone to miss it. You said as close to God as it gets,
Mm-hmm.
because I think for you, as opposed to many other, I will say, like New Age, or those who sort of worship the earth instead of worshiping God, you said as close to God as it gets, because he's actually the creator of all of the things that we put in our body,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
so some people might say as close to the ground as you can get, which is still
Mm-hmm.
accurate, right? But
Right.
the source of that red pepper
Mm-hmm.
came from God. So I just want no one should overlook that, as
You don't
close to
want
God
to
as they can.
breeze over that one. That is
Do
that
not
is a big
breathe
one.
in.
That is
That's
good. Yes.
huge.
God is
And
the creator of all the goodness.
I think I see that because I'm in an industry where a lot of sort of earth worshiping happens, or mother earth worshiping language kind of happens. And so that's just something that kind of makes me cringe a little bit. And the way you said it made me
Yeah.
smile really big, as close to God
Oh.
as you can get. So to answer your question about different age groups, can you rephrase the question again? Because I've forgotten it.
Yeah, well, I'm just wondering, does someone in their 30s
Hmm.
approach their diet different from, I'm now above 50. I have most of my friends are already in menopause. I'm knocking on the door of that. I'm hoping soon. Um, and so would you approach it any differently? Your diet, your health? Obviously, I know we're going to talk next week about more of the physical and exercise and that type of thing. But when it comes to eating, do you approach your diet differently in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and above?
Well, I think that you can,
Mm-hmm.
whether or not you should is a different question. I think 20s and 30s might be a time to explore a little bit all of the different things we were talking about, the ketos, the ketosis,
Mm-hmm.
the paleos, the Weight Watchers, like what works for me. And you can do that, and you can and your body can bounce back from whatever didn't work much easier.
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot more freedom in your 20s and 30s to do that.
Right.
When we hit our 40s and our hormones begin to drastically change, and then into our 50s, like we're seeing big changes, I think it's highly important to know your hormones.
Mm-hmm.
And so women historically always get frustrated with their fitness and their health in their 40s. It might be 42, it could be 48, but somewhere in their 40s, you're going to go, hold on,
Mm-hmm.
something's not going right. What worked in my 20s and 30s is not working at all. What do I do?
Yeah.
So there's like a hard stop that you generally have this period where you're like, Lord help me. I am dying here. I can't get rid of this 30 pounds. What is going on? I've never had a belly in my life. That's because your hormones are drastically changing.
Mm-hmm.
So when you approach your fitness and your health in your 40s and 50s, you're gonna need to know what's happening with my hormones. What are my hormone levels at? What are my cortisol levels at?
Mm-hmm.
Stress suddenly, not actually said, I say the word suddenly, we suddenly tend to need to pay attention to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So our bodies could process and handle the stress in our 20s and 30s without us even seeming to phase us. I'm not saying it doesn't phase us, but we tend to ignore it a little bit more, and our bodies can bounce back. Once we hit our 40s and 50s, like, you cannot go without sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Your body just needs the sleep, period. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't, well, you're going to be wasted by the time you're 60. I mean, wasted. And you don't want your skin to be saggy. And by the time you're 60, you don't want your joints to be dying by the time you realize, like, I have to make some changes. I need to realize, like, my cortisol levels, the stress hormones, are out of control. And if I don't do something about this, I'm not even going to be able to go for a brisk walk. That's not asking too much of my body, but I'm not even going to be able when I'm 60 to go for a brisk walk. And that's the way I don't want to live that way. Mm-hmm. So the difference, in conclusion, would be a heightened awareness and knowledge of your hormones. That only happens through probably going and seeing a functional doctor, mm-hmm. getting some blood work. And I don't mean just going to your regular doctor. This is the important key of this, because you can't just go to your regular doctor and be like, I'd like to get my hormones checked. Can you take some blood work? Because guess what? They're going to compare your blood work to what's quote unquote normal in American standards. That doesn't mean that it's okay. Like, mm-hmm. normal American standards, we're all high on sugar every single day. Sugar is as addictive as cocaine for your body. I'm getting all passionate now. I'm like talking with my hands, if you can see the video. But we're all surviving on processed foods, sugar, high fats, seed oils, like canola oil. And so whatever normal is to the medical industry is not okay. So you're going to need to hire a functional doctor. You're going to need to put some money into it.
Yeah, because it's not covered by insurance. I just found that out with my last visit. I went and did the whole panel, mm-hmm. and had to pay for it out of pocket because I was not going to my normal doctor was just not cutting it. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
You're going to take some blood work. You're going to need to pee on a stick. That's going to check for those cortisol stress levels. You might need to poop in a little can and send it off to get it tested, right, for your gut. So it's just a little more intensive and so critically important. Lana, you're shaking your head because you're in your early 50s. Mm-hmm. And it sucks, but it's real.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think with knowledge, and you know me, I'm Miss Cheap. I don't want to put money out for anything, but with that knowledge, you can do some things and you can adjust things, and it does help you and you end up feeling better. And that's what it's all about. It's not necessarily all this eating stuff. It's not necessarily so you can look good in a swimsuit
Right.
like it was when we were in our 20s. We want to feel good and be healthy and have the energy for the day ahead of us for our to walk out our purpose that God gave us. And it takes a lot of energy. And, coming into these older ages, we have a lot of fun things ahead of us. As we were just talking, we talked for quite a bit before we started recording. It's kind of fun to come to this place in life where kiddos are growing up, and we don't have to be 100% focused on them, and we have all these dreams ahead of us, and we need energy and we need to be healthy for that. So it's definitely a shift in the why we're doing it. I could say, back in my early days in the 20s, I felt good all the time. So it wasn't an issue. And it was all about, oh, I want to get into these jeans, or how am I going to look? And it has nothing to do with that anymore. It's more about the energy. So I do think it's important to invest in it for sure. For
One
sure.
one
So
last.
Mindy, we had you on, oh my goodness, a couple months ago. I think it was episode 65, possibly. We talked about emotional eating. So I have and I know I've kept you longer than I said I would. One last question for you. For someone that is wanting to start out a new year, a fresh start, um, and really this is their season to focus in on their health and how they're feeling and how they're eating. Just briefly touch on the emotional eating, and if there's someone that's really struggling with that, um, do you have just speak to that? Do you have an answer for that, or a tip for them that might help them get over that?
I have no other way of approaching this than from a Christian standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to sound like a doomsday person, but you just used the phrase to get over that.
Yeah,
I'm not sure for
it's
those of
not
us who,
possible, really.
right, for those of us who struggle with emotional eating, some people just don't feel like they want to eat when they are emotional.
Uh-huh.
Some of us feel like they want to eat when they're happy emotional and deep down sad emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say I am in the category of when it is deep down sad emotional, I will get it. And this is true. This is a true statement about myself. So I say this not to make it about me, but to hopefully help your audience resonate. If I'm hitting in a space where like I am so sad,
Mm-hmm.
I can't eat.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'm in a place where I'm mentally having to be self-aware and go, you got to get some calories in today.
Mm-hmm.
Like so and so just died. This is sad. But you got to get some calories in today. So
Mm-hmm.
that becomes a space where I'm like, Lord, help me remember that I can't function. I won't be able to get out of bed tomorrow if my body doesn't have some calories to eat. And
Mm-hmm.
so that just becomes a place where I'm talking to the Lord in that space. Like the other end of that, Mendy tends to eat like the ice cream or the salty chips when even it could even be good anxiety, like distress, so like I got a lot to do. Da, 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 da. So instead of getting those things done,
Mm-hmm.
I might get them done while I'm crunching on something,
Mm-hmm.
which is also just feeding and reinforcing my brain to go, when we're stressed we eat, when we're
Yeah.
stressed we eat. So I create a reinforcement of, so for the next time, that's what my body says, it's time to eat. Oh, it's time to eat, you're stressed out and you got a lot to do, so let's eat some chips. That's
Mm-hmm.
going to soothe you. It's a conversation. And in the counseling world, we talk about cognitive behavioral therapy. This comes into play quite a bit in a space where you're having to have a conversation
Mm-hmm.
with God within yourself, do some self-talk, which is literally like brain talk
Mm-hmm.
on ways to override your habits.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because you're, like I said, again, every time it's like when you let the dog out of the back on the back of your house and he has his own favorite path that he likes to run. And so every time he goes out and in, he creates a dirt path on your grass. And every time you let him out to go potty, he likes that one specific place. He just wears a debit in the grass. Every time you allow yourself to do that, you're creating that neural pathway of reinforcing that path. It becomes a real hard debit in the grass of your brain.
Mm-hmm.
I eat when I'm stressed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So how do we do that? We override it
Mm-hmm.
with different habits. We acknowledge that the urge is coming. We know, hey, this is normal. My brain has been taught this over 23 years. I had a childhood that when things were bad, this is what we did. This is what my parents taught me. Or maybe it was sugar, maybe it was hard candy, whatever your thing was. Acknowledging it's there, understanding why, where did it come from in my childhood? When did I start doing this? For me, I started doing this when we adopted our girls.
Mm-hmm.
And that was 9 years ago. So I realized I was reinforcing it every time I was super stressed. And so
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like it is a way of self-numbing a little bit? I feel like we're really quick to acknowledge someone's an alcoholic, someone's on drugs, someone's gambling. Those are signs that are out there that are just super easy to point a finger at as a self-numbing type of thing. And the eating, because we do it many times a day, and it's a part of being healthy, and it's how God made us. But I do feel like at some point it could become a self-numbing, like trying not to deal with the emotions, maybe. I don't know.
right. We know that we can get a quick dopamine hit.
Yeah.
It helps us to cope in this moment. When I was in graduate school, this is like writing papers all night. How can I crunch on something sweet and salty while I write this paper all night? It's making it's a false sense of like high for me to keep going.
Right. Right.
The idea of like it's a false sense of a high for me to keep going resonates with an alcoholic. It's a false sense of numbing so that I can keep going with the struggles in my life. Drug addicts, it's a false sense of like numbing so that I can keep going in my life. It's the same exact thing. And so again, though, we're reinforcing the brain that in this situation, whether it's drugs, alcohol, food, porn, whatever it is, we're reinforcing the brain that we need this when this is happening, and we put those two things together, and it's hard for the brain to override it. Some people say in the world of addiction, once you've actually thought about the donut, your brain salivates, it's over. You're probably going to get the donut. And if you ever slow yourself down enough, for me, that would be like, if you find me in my office alone with Chick-fil-A, it's a bad day. Just saying. One time my boss walked in and he was like, whoa, I've never seen that. I was like, just let me be. Okay. I'm working through it. It's fine. And he was like, this is not like you. You're normally, I'm like, it's been a day. And I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not saying it's okay. But once, I mean, I've literally slowed myself down at times. And so if you can do this for yourself, if you can be like, oh my gosh, how did I get to I am in the I'm in line at Chick-fil-A. How did I get to this space? It's like I zoned out in this moment between driving from home to there, and I just did it. And now I'm over here remorseful. Slow yourself down enough to recognize the process, understand where it came from, and then make a different choice. But you have to have a plan in place.
Yes. And you have to have healthy food around you. If it's, your next meal, you have to make that decision as you're getting things out of your garden or you're going to the grocery store, to have that backup there for your next meal, for sure.
In the same way that an alcoholic has to have a plan for how he's going to be successful, or she is going to be successful to not have alcohol, right? To consume it. He's not going to go to the bar. He's not going to go, he's certainly not going to have it in his house.
Right.
Instead, his plan is to replace it with an AA meeting.
Right.
Or a church service or a Bible study. In the same way, you're saying, I'm hearing you say, like, have a plan, start a garden.
Right. Right. I love that. So good.
My hands again.
So Mendy, tell us where we can get more of you. I know you have a Bible study. Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, I do actually. Look, I have it sitting right here.
Funny how that works.
No, I do have this Healthy Habits Bible study. I'm actually teaching it at the church where I work here soon. If you're local and you want to experience this Bible study in person, We start mid-February. You can find that on pleasantvalley.org at the church. So you can sign up and do that locally. If you're not local and you'd still like to experience it, or you'd like to do it with a girlfriend or a big neighborhood or some friends from church, you can also go online and find our Bible study. We have leaders notes. There are videos with each chapter. It's a plug and play. It's literally 9 meetings and everything is here in this book. It's super simple, and you can work through that by yourself or with a friend. I also have a 90-day healthy habits journal that goes along with the Bible study. So the things that you're learning to do, these healthy habits that you're learning here in this Bible study, you can document and journal every single day in your 90-day healthy habits journal. This is 9 weeks. This is 90 days. They don't actually go together, but this encourages you to keep going on even after the Bible study is over.
Mm-hmm.
So
and it's beautiful. And it's beautiful.
Thank you. We track things like sleep, water, getting in the Word, working out, your daily worship, your daily to-do list, and your meals, all in one spread.
I love it. I love it. Well, Mendy, thank you for coming on and sharing all your wisdom today. I love that we chatted about healthy eating habits. And next week, we're going to be chatting about exercise and movement. And then we're going to move in on the 3rd episode of the series, talking about mindset from a Christian worldview, not the hokey weird stuff. And so I love having you on, and I appreciate you sharing all your wisdom with us, and we will check back with you next week. Thanks for joining us, friends.
Thank you so much, Lana.